Yo, this is a special edition of the Fight Block. Strikeforce is live July 30th. It's Fedor Emelianenko taking on Dan Henderson in the main event. These are our predictions. So there are several rumored fights that are most likely to happen on this card. First fight being Scott Smith taking on Tarek Saffiedine. Scott Smith, he's coming off of that knockout loss to Paul Daly. Saffiedine, he just lost the decision to up-and-comer Tyron Woodley, who will also most likely be on the card. Thoughts? Tarek Saffiedine, I don't know much about him, but do you know?
Yeah, he's a foreigner, actually. He's an interesting prospect. We haven't really seen whether he's, incredibly legit or whether he's, just going to be one of those guys who's a tough matchup for up-and-comers for the rest of his career. I think that this is a big opportunity for him in a winnable fight, and he should be looking to make a strong statement.
Yeah, and I think from what I remembered, he actually looked pretty good in his last fight against Woodley, but I think Woodley was able to mix up his wrestling and striking with that and just sort of caught Saffiedine off guard. But my pick in this fight, Scott Smith, he's a brawler. He always brings a fight, but he's just known to take a beating, and I think Saffiedine's going to be able to work his way to a decision against Smith. I think Smith will either get rocked or hurt, as he usually does in his fights, and then continue fighting, but it'll be enough for Saffiedine to capitalize, win a decision.
I more or less agree. I'm going to pick Saffiedine as well. There's always a chance with Scott Smith that he'll land that out of nowhere right hand, but you got to wonder what Scott Smith's camps are like. After every loss, it seems like it's just like, no, we have to take more chances and be more one-dimensional, and
yeah.
It works for him sometimes. I'll give him that. He's definitely a fighter for the fans, and because of that, I think health permitting, he'll always have a job, but he isn't really going to have a smart game plan. I think he's going to kind of try to go bombs away with Saffiedine. Saffiedine has a lot of decisions, submission wins. I think he's going to try to take this fight to the ground, and I think he'll be able to do that at least long enough to win 2 rounds. I could see Smith tagging him just as easily, but I think smart money's on Saffiedine in this one.
Yeah, all yours.
Rounding out the official portion of the preliminary fight card, and this one should not be changed unless there's an injury, because it's already been announced officially by Strikeforce, is Lyle Beerbaum against Jay-Z Cavalcante. This fight should be very good. Both guys are very competent on the ground. Beerbaum's coming off 2 losses, so he's going to be looking to remind people that he is a top prospect. Apparently Strikeforce really doesn't like him, though, so if he doesn't make a strong showing in this fight, I think management will be in no sad state of mind to cut him. At the same time, GZ hasn't looked that impressive since coming to Strikeforce either. However, he has fought the much tougher competition, so I think it's a no-brainer here. I'm going to take Jay-Z by late submission or decision.
Yeah, Jay-Z Cavalcante, he's been around for a lot longer. He's fought a lot better talent than Beerbaum. I thought Beerbaum playing into Aoki's strengths and trying to grapple with Aoki in his last fight was stupid, and then he got caught in a submission early in the fight. If this fight goes to the ground, I think Beerbaum will hold his own for a little bit. He'll be able to grapple, but I think eventually Jay-Z's just going to slap in a submission, so I'm taking Jay-Z Cavalcante by submission in the second round. So another fight that's most likely going to happen, it's a welterweight matchup between Paul Daly and Tyron Woodley. This fight actually has title implications now that Nick Diaz is going over to the UFC to take on GSP. The welterweight title in Strikeforce will be vacated. So this potentially could be a number 1 contender shot. Tyron Woodley, he's an up-and-coming talent, great prospect. He gets high praise from Pat Miletich, and Miletich just says he's the next big thing in MMA. But Tyron Woodley, or Paul Daly, I should say, is the toughest competition that Tyron Woodley has faced yet. Woodley, like I said, he's a wrestler. Sometimes Paul Daly gets a hard time for his wrestling defense, but I think Paul Daly is going to be able to have his moments in this fight where the fight will be standing. He'll be able to stop some of Tyron Woodley's takedowns, and I just think Paul Daly's striking is just going to be too much for Woodley. I don't know if you can call it an upset because, Woodley's got a lot of hype behind him, but I'm taking Paul Daly to rebound off his knockout loss to Diaz, take this fight by TKO in the second round.
I think you pretty much covered it all. I definitely hear you on the stylistically. Everybody's just counting Daly out because he's fighting a wrestler, but Daly's really only lost via kind of the wrestling department to top-level wrestlers, and even Jake Shields has had trouble getting him down, and plenty of people struggle for the takedown with him. Woodley is still fairly green. I think he's got a bright future, but as simple as Paul Daly's combos are, they're very effective. I think he's bound to catch Tyrone Woodley at least at some point and swarm him and remind people why he was just fighting for the title.
Next fight on the card is one I'm really looking forward to. It's a matchup between Tim Kennedy and Robbie Lawler. Matt, I'll let you give your thoughts first. Predictions.
I think this is a great matchup. I think that, it's a pick 'em fight. I mean, unless we see otherwise unfold, each guy could beat each other 5 out of 10 times. I think Vegas has the betting odds leaning towards Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken, because he does have more of a wrestling ability than Lawler. But I think if you look at Kennedy's wins, the only really top striker I feel like he's faced recently that he's beaten is Manhoef. And, Manhoef's a lot more vulnerable for the takedown. Lawler, he just beat Lindland and avoided his takedowns in wrestling long enough, which, are still intact, despite the fact that Lindland has aged. I think that the fight with, the current champion, Jacare Souza, is actually very telling because he was actually able to get the better of the stand-up against Kennedy often. I don't see in a 3-round fight Kennedy being able to knock out Lawler at all. I don't think he has a submission prowess to submit him either. Unless he proves differently. Lawler hung in there with Souza for quite a while and was able to escape some nasty stuff. I see Lawler maybe not knocking him out, but definitely decisioning him. It might look a lot like Babalu versus Lawler.
I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. Robbie Lawler, he's been a little bit inconsistent lately. He was on that tear when he came over from Elite XC to Strikeforce, but since losing to Shields, he's kind of been a little bit inconsistent. Kennedy, he's coming off of that submission win over Manhoef. Although Lawler, he has fought far better talent than Kennedy, like you said, in terms of matchups. I just think Kennedy, he's got a lot to fight for. He's thinking about possibly going back to the Army, so he's got a lot of that riding on him. I know he's mentioned he'd like one more title shot before he returns to duty, if that's what he indeed chooses to do. But if this fight goes to the ground, I give the advantage to Kennedy. I think he could definitely submit Lawler. And then on the feet, Lawler definitely, I think, has more of a power punch, more sort of a better ability to finish the fight with that one shot. But I think Kennedy can hold his own in the striking, and if he's able to mix it up with his wrestling, which I think he might be able to do, and take this fight to the ground, he'll be able to work his way to a decision. I don't think he's going to submit Lawler or finish him. I see this fight going 3 rounds, but I'm taking Kennedy in this fight. And what's likely to be the co-main event for the Strikeforce card, women's welterweight title fight between champion Marloes Coenen and Miesha Tate. This is a tough one to pick because Tate, I believe her nickname's Takedown, so she likes to take her opponents down and beat them up. But that plays right into Coenen's strength. Coenen's going to be, I think, the bigger welterweight. After her loss to Cyborg Santos, she cut down from middleweight, so she is a big welterweight, and she's got submissions. Her last 2 wins against Kaufman and Kamouche, both those fighters took Marloes Coenen down to the ground, put on a beating, and then Coenen was able to just slap into submission. I believe she caught Kaufman in an armbar and then caught Kamouche in a triangle. And Miesha Tate, she's a up-and-coming talent. She's only got 2 losses in her career. And, so she's tough, but I just see this fight being a lot like Coenen's last 2 fights. I think Coenen's going to have to take a beating to win this fight. But if Tate indeed takes Coenen down, sits in her guard, I think it's just a matter of time, especially with this fight being 5 rounds, that Coenen slaps on a submission. So I'm taking Marloes Coenen by triangle choke in the 3rd round.
I think that was a great prediction. I think Coenen's tough as nails. She's taken a lot of punishment in her career so far, in her last few fights. So, hopefully it doesn't result in, her exiting the MMA game sooner than she should. I may live to regret this pick, but I just kind of believe in Tate right now. I see her kind of following the blueprint that the others did and maybe trying to avoid the submissions at the same time. I do think that the later this fight goes, the more it favors the champion. However, I do think Tate might be able to do enough punishment to possibly force a TKO, or I'm thinking maybe even a doctor's stoppage. I could see her, hitting some of the scar tissue and making the champion swell up enough so the doctors stop it. Either way, I see Tate on top a lot in this one. I see her scoring takedowns at will. I think it will be a good competitive fight because even if it is with one person on top the whole time, the champion is very good off of her back and very active as well. So I think it should be interesting, but I'm going to go with Tate at the upset on this one, and I think it'll be later, like in round 3.
In the main event, it's a highly anticipated matchup. It's a dream fight between Fedor Emelianenko and Dan Henderson. I believe this fight's going to take place at a catchweight, although it's being labeled a heavyweight fight, somewhere around 220. I don't know if that got scrapped, but anyways, Henderson, he's moving up to heavyweight to take on Fedor. This is just an awesome fight. I've been really looking forward to it. It's a tough fight to call. I'm going to let you go first. What are your thoughts, Matt? How's this fight going to go down?
I think this is not as much of a pick'em fight as people say. I never rule Hendo out of any fight. I mean, I always tell you, nobody has a resume like Hendo. Even if he hasn't beaten all of the top guys, nobody has faced harder competition in their career at him. The best at 185, 205, and heavyweight, fights on short notice. He fought Big Nog in his prime, and he beat him one of those times. I think the fact that he even took this fight just cements Hendo's legacy even more. That being said, I think the only reason they're looking against Fedor is because of the reasons he lost recently. But Hendo is not a giant guy. He's tiny at 205, let alone heavyweight. Fedor is going to be very comfortable, even if it's at 220 catch weight. That's not very much weight to where he would be sapped by a big weight cut. He's going to have the power advantage, which is not something Hendo's used to in his opponents. And at the same time, he's got Hendo's main kryptonite in his arsenal too. His quick hips for submissions. I'm going to have to go with Fedor on this one. Smart money would say submission, but I actually am afraid that Fedor is going to be the first one to crack that legendary jaw of Hendo.
So, do you think you can't count out Henderson at all?
Absolutely not.
Even though he might be a little bit undersized, you think he can utilize his wrestling, take Fedor down, hold him there, avoid submissions, and possibly ground out a decision?
I think the only way that would happen is if Fedor was really conditionally challenged. I don't think that'll be the case in this fight. Hendo also, he's not really a wet blanket kind of guy. He'll score takedowns for points and grind guys out, but he's always looking for the knockout. He really just kind of will do the wrestling if he realizes he's behind on the scorecards or he wants to get ahead early. Plus, Fedor, I'm sure he wouldn't mind if he was taken down. He's got that sambo, so he could reverse the takedown in the position, or he could submit him.
Yeah, and just looking at their two stand-up styles, Fedor, he's definitely a little bit more of the combination wild puncher. Henderson, he holds up or locks that right hand, throws it. What's his nickname for his...
the H-bomb.
The H-bomb. He's got the H-bomb in his right hand. If Fedor comes in, although Fedor's never actually been finished by... Neither fighter has been finished by knockout or TKO. Henderson still possesses that power that, like Fedor always says, Fedor has never bought into his own hype. Fedor's always said, I'm human just like everyone else. And, Henderson definitely can catch Fedor, knock out Fedor for the first time either. But my thoughts is, yes, Fedor is coming off 2 losses in a row, which was very surprising, and almost retired in his last loss to Silva. But really, those 2 losses in Fedor's career, they're not like the Chuck Liddell losses where you go, this guy needs to retire, he's done. He got cut by Werdum in a triangle. Everyone knows how dangerous Werdum is on the ground. And then he just lost to a much bigger, damn it.